Good afternoon, you guys. I have made you guys a review for the multiple choice section. That's a little game, so I hope you did that. This review is for the short answer questions. So I'm going to go over a strategy for how to get a good grade on those multiple choice questions. I'm telling you exactly what they are. I suggest that you write down your answers right now on paper, and then you can type it up into the test when you actually get your final exam for this class. So this is the short answer question prep for 102 survival of the fittest for your guys' final exam. Okay, so here's some basic information. I want you to write in complete sentences, okay? I want you to practice that. It's really important. On a complete sentence, you need to capitalize the first letter of your sentence, and then you need to put a period at the end. The reason you can't just give me a list of vocabulary words or something for the short answer questions is because I need to see how you connect those vocabulary words and how you use them to tell if you understand them. And on a short answer question, that's basically what I'm doing. I'm looking for, like, does this person understand the content of this class? So I have 3 short answer questions, and I really just care if you understand the content of the class. So you can explain it in your own words. One of the things I put on here is do not copy from the internet webs. There's a lot of reasons for that. You're cheating. You'll fail the class. So in these classes, we're kind of giving you a lot of time to take your time to finish them. But if you're cheating, then you're just gonna fail. Like, you're just not gonna be able to do it. You'll have to take it online or something else. If you write your answers right now with me when I'm going over this, you won't even have to cheat because it will be easy to do it right now. If you're writing something that looks like nothing you've ever turned in before, I'm going to assume you were cheating, like you copied it off the internet and just pasted it. There's certain words that I just don't ever hear from youth, and it sounds like when they write those words, they're cheating. So please use your own words and the words we learn in class, because those are the content vocabulary words that you need to use. A lot of the vocabulary words are in the multiple choice questions, so if you do not write your answers right now, you can still look there for help on what words to include in your paragraphs. Okay, take your time and try to do your best. So you can use spell check. I'm not going to, I'm not going to count off for your spelling and stuff unless it's like really bad and I can't understand what you're saying. But try to do your best on grammar. The cool thing about having the ability to type your answers instead of writing them out is you can figure out how to spell something. So please do that. I recommend that you prepare in advance. You write it now, type it later. Do not copy off the internet, you guys. Do not do that. That is cheating. That is wrong. And it prepares you for a failure on your standardized tests that you guys have to take, where you have to know this stuff later on for your graduation requirement. Okay, let's get started on talking about the first question. So the first question is going to be describe the theory of evolution by natural selection. So I really want to, the theory of evolution by natural selection, that phrase is going to be in every single question. And remember, when we say a scientific theory, we're not talking about like a casual theory that you might have about something, like that's silly. Like, one time, I don't know, the meat that they used to serve in the cafeteria before we got our new caterer, I had a theory that it wasn't made out of animals. Like, I had a theory that it was made out of soy. I didn't do any, like, there was no bodies of evidence to support that. It was just a random guess I had. When we talk about a theory in science, we are saying this is what all the evidence supports. So I know this might sound crazy because you have had many experiences with gravity, but gravity is technically a theory. So if you think that gravity is not real because it's just a theory, that would kind of be like as crazy as saying that evolution isn't real because it's just a theory. It doesn't make sense. So I just want to make sure that I emphasize that the use of the word theory in science is not like if Donald Trump has a theory about something. It is like we have a whole bunch of evidence and data, and we've done a whole bunch of experiments, and all of that points towards this theory. It's the best explanation we have for something. Could gravity not be real? Actually, yes, it could totally not be real. But right now, all the evidence supports it. Okay, so in this question, there's 3 things I would talk about. It'll definitely get you to 5 sentences on the question. So first, I would explain that evolution is the population level change of organisms over time. And so I would talk about how basically people have always known that organisms look like their parents, but they also have some differences, and those differences can be due to genetic diversity. And that genetic diversity is based on mutation. So I would talk about how mutations occur, and that makes natural changes in populations. Okay. But in order for it to be like an evolutionary change, you have to have that particular mutation change the whole population over a lot of time, over a lot of generations. Now, a lot of time can mean, in the case of like humans, it would mean like thousands of years. In the case of a bacteria, it could mean just like a few weeks because bacteria live and die over many generations in just that period of time. Okay, then I would talk about how descent with modification isn't something that's controversial, but when Darwin suggested that natural selection is how evolution occurs, what he really means is that nature, because it's hard to live, I mean, it's hard to survive and reproduce amongst a whole bunch of other organisms that are also fighting for the same food as you, they're also trying to use the resources, that nature selects organisms that have adaptations that make organisms more fit. And you would need to make sure to describe what adaptations and fitness are. So adaptations are positive changes that make an organism more fit, and fitness is the ability of an organism overall to survive and reproduce. So remember, it doesn't always mean that the organism is stronger, it just means that it's able to live long enough to make enough offspring. All right, and then I would use maybe some examples, and I would say, like, we know that evolution happens because organisms from the past are like modern organisms, like the mammoth and the elephant. The mammoth, of course, is an ancestor of elephants, or mammoths and elephants have common ancestors. The chicken and the T-Rex have a common ancestor, and Homo erectus, who is a lot like us, Homo sapiens, but it has gone extinct because it wasn't as fit as we are, and we are Homo erectus's descendants, so they are our ancestor. Okay, so the second question is, explain the evidence that's used to support the theory of evolution by natural selection. So there are many bodies of evidence, which just means like whole groups of scientists studying evolution that come up with a lot of evidence over time. So the first one, of course, is the fossil record. The fossil record shows us that organisms of the past are like organisms of the present. So we can look at the organisms that used to live that are extinct now because we have the fossil record. There's two ways to figure out how old things are. You can use relative dating. Remember, that has to do with like the layers of the earth. What layer is it in? Well, if it's towards the bottom, the oldest layer, then it's going to be older than towards the top. Or we can use absolute dating, which is like the dating with radioactive isotopes like uranium decays into lead, and we can look at that and figure out, well, how much of the uranium has decayed into lead, and then we can tell how old something is. Comparative anatomy. So this is where those homologous structures come in. Most organisms that are like a crazy ton of organisms, insects, bacteria, kind of have like an eye or a sensor for light because they use light in their processes to maintain homeostasis. So like kind of like almost all animals I can think of, even like snails have eyes, insects have eyes, humans have eyes, whales have eyes. And so that is a common structure that's used for a similar purpose in many species that shows that we have a common ancestor. So you have an eyeball, and so does let's see here, a fly. Flies have eyeballs, so you and flies have a common ancestor. Oop, I went too far. Okay, then we have direct observation, so we can actually watch evolution happen. The reason it's really hard to watch happen in people with our direct observation, so like seeing it, is because humans take a really long time to have generations. So humans take thousands of years to evolve as a population, but like bacteria, like the superbugs, those ones that are really hard to cure because they become antibiotic resistant, those ones we can watch evolution occur because they have so many generations in just weeks. So we can see that happening in them. When we talk about human evolution, we have to look at fossils because it takes thousands of years for us to evolve. Okay, and then we also have DNA, which shows that all organisms are related and we all have a similar way of putting our body together. So it doesn't matter if you're an elephant or a fungus, you're a mushroom or an elephant, you have DNA, and that DNA directs proteins, and then that's how your body gets put together. So we know that since all organisms have that way of functioning, we are all related, and that is more evidence towards evolution. Okay, the last question is explain how the process of biological evolution by natural selection occurs on small scales and large scales. So on the small scale, what we're looking at is genetics. We're looking at those DNA changes because those DNA changes cause proteins to be built differently. So mutations are, if they're positive, they're called adaptations. Remember, they're random. You can't choose to have a mutation. If I could choose a mutation, I would choose a mutation that gives me more hair because I have really thin, lame hair and I would like a lot of it. And I would like it to be curly or wavy because it's super flat. But I can't choose that for myself. I mean, I can curl it, I can dye it, but it still grows out of my head the same lame way that it's natural because that's what I've got genetically. So these mutations, they can occur, and when they occur positively, they make an organism more fit. We call it an adaptation. Those have to be passed down. So like if I get skin cancer and I have a mutation in my cells that's caused by UV radiation, that's not something I would pass down to my offspring. So that's not something that would be counted as an evolutionary change for me to have skin cancer. An example could be like blue eyes. Blue eyes are a mutation. Everybody's eyes were originally brown, but there was a mutation in some person who was living at the poles. There could be mutations in people that live by the equator too, but they wouldn't make you more likely to survive and reproduce. So then you're not as likely to have that stick around in the population. But if you go towards the poles where the white people are, they have a lot more light-colored eyes. Light-colored eyes are a mutation, and light-colored eyes are actually like pretty painful to have near the equator. So like I live 32 degrees north, and my eyes when I go outside, they literally hurt because the sun is so bright down here. But when I go outside and it's cloudy, like it doesn't hurt because there's not as much radiation penetrating my eyes. And if I lived near the poles where my ancestors lived, then that would be the case all the time because it is dark a lot of times up there for a lot of the year. Okay, the simulation that you guys did with the bunnies and there was the brown fur one, remember the brown fur at the equator was an adaptation, but that when the mutation occurred to give white-haired bunnies, that was actually an advantage trait to have when you were living where it's snowy because then the rabbit would blend into the snow. So those are on a small scale. But when you have it change the whole population, that's when we call it large-scale evolution. This has to occur over many generations. One example that you guys saw was the peppered moth. Over time, the peppered moth changed colors depending on how much pollution there was around where they were living. And that's like a large scale population level change, so we would call that evolution on a large scale. White people have lived near the poles, black people have lived near the equator until people started moving wherever they want, and now black people live in Europe, and white people can live near the equator, but that's not where we evolved. The population level changes took place before humans were like moving all around the whole entire globe. So that would be an example on that front. Okay, you guys really prepare. You can write these things down right now and then just copy them into your test when it comes available to you next week. I think next week is already the final exam, you guys. Can you believe that? Okay, have a beautiful day and let me know if you have any questions. If you would like to set up an individual study session and I will go over the things you need to know with you, then just text me or call me or email me and we can set up a time to do that.